Right. So Kenneth,
Sarah.
so part two of our healing conversation, our conversation about healing. And I think the reason I wanted to follow up on our last one was, well, one of the last things I think I brought up was dissolving the ego, which was not really something we talked about.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's a psychotherapy topic, but what's interesting to me these days, and what has been interesting, is the intersection of spirituality and psychotherapy, and that there really doesn't seem to be much difference to me, but there is definitely a difference in the culture at large, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just gonna go back to my story and just make it personal. When I first started having a lot of trouble in like 2005, and I was seeing a psychiatrist, a couple of different therapists, or I guess it was a psychologist. And these were very caring people. And obviously, they knew what they were doing. They're intelligent. They had all the skills. But there's something for me that was like a little bit hollow or a little bit missing. And it didn't work for me. Like, I kept trying these mainstream kind of modalities, and I just felt like something was being missed. So I got referred to you through a couple of different people. And so ever since then, I've been trying to put my finger on like what made it different when I met Kenneth. Um, and there were some other therapists like before I met you who I felt like they saw me through this kind of spiritual lens. Um, and I've been listening to Being Ramdas audiobook,
Yeah.
um, which I know is like 2 years old, but I just started listening to it, and he had, I think it was when Timothy Leary came to Harvard. And prior to this, he had been learning about like lobotomies and really, really old school methods, right? And
Mhm.
he said, when I met Timothy, the way he was looking at patients was like they had a soul, and it was totally different. And Ramdas is saying that's what was missing for him, and it was just so sweet to hear him say that, because I was like, well, yeah, it kind of was exactly it. Like that's the thing that was missing. Um, but I didn't take psychedelics, and I'm not really a psychedelics person. Um, so it wasn't like um that was my path, I guess. Um, and I know that's a path for a lot of people, and that's totally great. But there was something about sitting with you. First off, we sat on the floor, on cushions, like a little bit Buddhist style, right? And
Right.
looking eye to eye, very grounded, and it immediately felt like we were equals, for one thing. And then it just felt like your goal or your agenda was just to love me, um, which was not something I had felt
hmm
really
hmm
at all previously. Um, like people were caring, but also like I felt a little bit objectified, and like I was a problem to solve.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and I didn't feel like I was a problem to solve with you. I felt like really there was actually nothing wrong other than maybe I had some confusion about who I was, kind of a thing.
Mm. Number one, that's high praise, just hearing that from you, Sarah. And I love what you said, about seeing the soul in the other person. Yeah. Because to me, it immediately grants dignity. It doesn't grant dignity, it recognizes, it acknowledges a dignity that is there, and to meet together in dignity, and then whatever the story is or the trauma is or whatever, it's like all of that gets held in dignity. This dissolving of the ego or whatever it is, whatever comes with that, there's something sacred about it, something worthy in the journey itself, in the path. So I really appreciate you framing it in that way.
Yeah, I'm starting to like tear up right now. Because I think, yeah, somehow I was not assured of my own worth before that work that we did together. And
Yeah.
it was like you were constantly transmitting the sense of dignity, a sense of basic worth. Like you are worthy without doing anything. Like you don't have to do anything. Just you, just plain you, are worthy. And when that kind of finally broke through, it was a little bit like a born again experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like wherever you are, at whatever point, wherever we walk in to the therapy session, there's like there's something holy about that place. It's not like we've got to go run from that place, because that whatever that is right then is going to take us wherever we need to go. So there's no need to like remedy it right away. It's like just I want to hear the story. I want to. It's fascinating. Whatever got us here is fascinating, if from that spiritual perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that, so kind of like I said last time, sitting with you for the 8 years, it's like it kind of made me the therapist that I am. And that sense of like getting so interested in the person and finding it exciting and fun.
Yeah.
To me, that's such a big deal to actually like truly be enjoying that person. When maybe no one has ever actually enjoyed them before.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, right. How much healing just in feeling somebody enjoying me, right? Enjoying uh, what I'm saying, enjoying my presence. Yeah, there's so much healing in that. Who is it? Oh, Anne Lamott wrote Bird by Bird,
mhm.
and she talks about when you've lost the plot, when you don't know where the story is going. She says, go back and get to know your characters. Because then you'll know, they'll tell you where the plot's going just by the nature of who they are. So and then that's that place when I'm confused or whatever. It's like, oh, if I just get to know the person more, that's gonna tell me something about or reveal to me where we're headed next.
So do you see that as an unfolding of the soul or a dissolving of ego, or from a spiritual perspective, what's
There
happening?
is something about it that is dissolving the ego, just in that sense of giving up control. Like I am not even thinking that I know what you need to do. Yeah. And I give up control of knowing what you need to do and knowing how you're going to do it. but that process of just spending time with where you are and what matters to you is going to tell us somehow. And that, that's like, to me, that's like, I've got to give up control just so I can hear that. And then give up that, it's me that's going to have some kind of answer about it.
Yeah, I like thinking of people having their own answers, and I'm holding space for that to arise.
Yeah.
But some people don't like that. um,
That's right. I don't even like it when I'm confused.
mhm. No, I don't. I don't either when it's not clear. But there's something about patience on both sides. If like there's some in some cases there like it evolves this contract of like patience with the unfolding of that person.
Yeah.
But that it doesn't always arise, and when it does, it's like a miracle. It's like now we're going, and
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, I don't know, like looking for signs of life. Like I think our patients come to us looking for signs of life in us, and I feel like I kind of look for, where is the aliveness or where is the aliveness blocked, either one,
mhm.
and try and join with that place because I think that's that's where the healing is that helping the person toward their aliveness. I think about a couple things. Like one is about aliveness and power. You know, the person being able to feel their own power, and that's the healing rather than what's the specific thing I need to do. And the other one was the one you alluded to earlier, which is like knowing, recognizing, reminding myself, remembering I'm a supernatural being.
Mhm.
And and that's so easy to forget. And so I'm trying to remind myself of that, and I'm trying to and I'm keeping in mind that you're a supernatural being, regardless of whatever the trouble is, or the lockdown place, stuck place is.
And there's dignity is inherent in that. To me, being a supernatural being is inherently dignified.
That is right. We're here. We may not know why we're here, but we know there's something going on.
There's
Something
something.
that, yeah, something that's worthy of our attention, and I think it's like feeling the full reach of our powers, especially our powers of the heart.
So I'm like scared to advertise these things about myself. I kind of see myself as incognito or something. Like I'm just a regular social worker, and then I'm not a regular social worker. But to me, seeing somebody as a spiritual being or having inherent dignity and inherent worth, and also like inherent intelligence as to what they
Yes.
need is like, why wouldn't you do that? But um I don't know. I still feel like there's something in mainstream culture that says like put it in a box and keep it safe. And
Yeah,
so
I think that's right. I think I try to uh, cultivate a kind of an image of weirdness so that people just kind of expect that.
you don't do any incognito stuff.
I know I did. I know I used to, uh, but but finally, the the research and the brain studies and the trauma discoveries kind of led us back to the body and back to the spirit, really. The interconnectedness. I mean, even the science is showing us that.
It's true. So maybe that's what we're here to talk about, is how I can come out of hiding.
That's right. I'll try and do the same. Oh, isn't that it? I'm going to tell this on myself. Uh, one of the things I was in a workshop this past weekend, and at one point I'd had this kind of little epiphany, and I said, I have been giving myself the wrong instructions. I've been telling myself to let go. And I've been listening to people tell me to let go, and I've never let go in response to anyone telling me to let go. Or when I've ever said it to myself, letting go has never followed. It's
Right.
happened. It's happened sometimes, but that's just happenstance. It's not like I talked myself into it. But what did feel right was saying, not let it go, but let it out.
Mm.
And I've just been working with that piece some of just whatever it is that I am holding, whatever I'm hiding, like you were just
Mhm.
talking about. I'm hiding this. Usually it's hiding something of my uniqueness, or hiding something of my power, or loving more than I let on, those kinds of things. And so just try and make it a practice. Let it out, let it out.
Do you have an example of some time that you did that?
Uh, I was kind of imagining this was all in part of the process that I was in, but I was just imagining I was seeing the boy that I was and how much he was not letting out. Uh, this might be relevant for our conversation, but I was aware of my experience was, if I was holding so much in because I felt like my very existence was hurting my parents. And so I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want my being to hurt them. So I'm holding all this in. Like, I don't know how to act around them. So I'm just going to hold it in. So in this kind of thing that was going on with me, I just started going, uh, I don't like this town. I don't like the school I'm in. I don't like the way you all talk about God. It just, everything I could think of that was judged in me or repressed in me, I was just trying to go, just let it have its moment.
I like that. I think for me it would be the weirdo spiritual stuff, to
Yeah,
just be completely weird. And if people think that you're insane, then just accept that that's what they think, and
yeah,
go on.
yeah. There's so much fear around this. I mean, there's so much fear around our own supernatural selves, our own dignity, our own power, our own identity. Just
Yeah.
have an identity uh, that we will lay claim to, and that we are. They can doubt us if they want to, but I mean, they don't know how much we're doubting ourselves in the whole process. We're way ahead of them on the doubt part, but to me, it's like trying to, I'm trying to challenge my own assumptions. I'm trying to test test my hypothesis, and that's the ongoing growth in it. Is nothing's totally for certain. Maybe love on a good day. But I know you do that too. It's like, okay, this feels right. Now let me try it out and see if it holds up.
This is really gruesome, but I just keep coming back to that lobotomy scene with
Mm.
with Ram Dass watching, that like the ice pick in the eye, like going back and forth, destroying the frontal cortex. Like this is the history of psychology, the field of psychology. Like to
And
literally,
something inside of Ram Dass is saying, this can't be right.
it's like this is really, really awful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he had a depressed patient, and because it was kind of this intractable depression, like that was what was done, and then all of a sudden, like his patient just had like was gone, and
Mm.
but I'm just speaking of fear, right? Like the fear that like whatever's going on up here is what makes us human, or it makes you a Homo sapien. Like better just get rid of it rather than go in there and explore the mystery. And so if you really are into exploring mystery and having the unknown and
Mm.
exploring some really maybe painful stuff without quick, easy answers, then it just sparks fear in pretty much everybody.
Yeah, the part that we would just like to somehow eliminate from ourselves rather than face into. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, we just assume that everything bad that's happened, we did it. It's our fault. It's our failure. That's where I go at meditation time. That's the first veil for me.
That everything's your fault.
Yeah. And want to eliminate, but then just trying to face into it like you're talking about.
Well,
Where did that come?
what's beneath that one once that one clears?
Yeah.
Like if you let go of everything being your fault, what comes next?
Total chaos. That's what I was thinking. It's so much easier. The easiest conclusion to come to is God is punishing me.
Mm.
All the other conclusions take a lot more work. That one just is so handy, so available to me, given my upbringing too. And so to challenge that, right? Maybe it's not about punishment.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
it's about discovering something.
say that again.
Maybe it's about discovering something. Maybe it's about uh, meeting, meeting something with love, compassion, just not knowing, meeting it as the stranger, uh, rather than assuming that I know what it is.
Well, I think you naming that first veil pointed me toward one of my veils is like coming from a medical family where everything is supposed to be be able to be explained, and the unknown is very terrifying and also kind of humiliating. It like shreds the ego if you just don't know. And so I have a very natural terror of the unknown and of the mystery. Like I'm both drawn to it and completely terrified of it at the same time.
And expected to know the answer is what it sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, what's wrong with you that you don't know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it brings me a great deal of pleasure to sit with somebody in the unknown and not jump to any conclusions at all, and trust that their being inherently knows
Would you
somehow.
say something about would you say something about how you went from that kind of fear into like enjoying the unknown?
Enjoying my patients.
Enjoying the unknown with your patients, yeah.
I think I learned it through you. I think it was like mirror neurons or something. Like um
Yeah.
that sense of you seem to be having fun working with me. And we laughed so much during a lot of our sessions, and because I think you were comfortable in that unknown space, which opens up into like a playground kind of. And I mean, there's so much pain and there's so much hilariousness at the same time.
Right. Yes.
Um, so I think I just really wanted other people to feel the way that I felt. Um, in this session. I mean, it's super simple. It's not like I was like, well, let me now go study transpersonal psychology. Like, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this because this is like Retta Lawler, Roshi, Sanchi Lawler trained me in this way that was like, I never knew what was going on. This was about 5 years. I never knew what was going to happen next. There was no broadcasting of or an itinerary. And if there was anything that was written down, it was uh, very, very subject to change at a moment's notice. And I learned a lot about, I don't have to know. I realized it wasn't going to kill me, not knowing. And so I just love that she transmitted that to me and I was able to transmit some of it to you because that's just how it happens.
Well, I figured Don Americo is a part of that too. Uh,
Yeah.
the mystery.
Don Americo is a Peruvian mystic, a dear friend, and learned kind of some of the fundamentals of Andean mysticism and really just uh, pagan experience. He wouldn't call it that, but I do, which is like contact of the spirit through the natural world, right? I mean, that's the shamanic realm is through the natural world. And he's very much that way too, and very much at home in the unknown and in the non-dual, in the paradoxical, in the contradictory, and being able to hold the contradiction, which is such a huge part of healing work. It is not expecting people to have one perspective, one frame, or one feeling about anything. There's all kinds of dimensions to that, layers of that.
So one thing I'm curious about is how did you go from getting a divinity degree to then like becoming a self-proclaimed weirdo so that everyone would know before they even got to your door?
That's right. I still don't know myself about the divinity degree.
Oh, okay.
I'm still trying to sort that out. Well, it's that part of the unknown too. I say this about divinity school for me was a lot about the study of how we construct the world, how we construct an identity, and how you deconstruct that, and how you deconstruct an argument, or any point of view. And what that does when you deconstruct is kind of leave you in that unknown space. And even when you're in a more familiar place, it's like, oh, well, I'm constructing things here. A lot of who I am is a construction. If I can keep that in mind, it's liberating. But there's also that underneath place of, there's a mystery. If you can break all that down, everything that I thought was designated me or who I was, and it's like, well, no, not really. That's just kind of something that was put together by my own defenses or the society's needs, epigenetics or whatever.
That sounds more Buddhist than Christian.
The Buddhists have got a hold of me, Sarah.
They're pretty good.
They're pretty good. I just finished reading today. I can't even think of his name, but he wrote a book, Why I'm Not a Buddhist. And it's a great book, and it made me more a Buddhist, I guess. But what are you saying about that? Looking at the Christian, kind of the Christian identity, is that what you're thinking?
Well, I guess I think of someone going to get a master's in divinity.
Oh, good point.
Like doesn't necessarily want to then take on this kind of free-spirited identity, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I guess the deconstruction kind of says all the different well-developed constructions have some worth, so
yeah,
Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism. I did have an appreciation for all of them, and also, kind of a critical view too. But yeah, the question was about going to a divinity school, which is kind of based in Christianity, to the weirdo that I am. I guess I was already kind of a weirdo going in, and so it just helped me become a better one. It didn't shift my outlook too much, because I think the outlook was still very, very heart-based, very experimental, very much trying to get to the knowing in my body, and relying not just on my thinking mind, but some of the deeper parts of myself, to know things and trust things about myself.
Yeah, I think coming into my own body and knowing my own body has been essential to my path too. I mean, with breath work, of course, but also there's so many different pathways into the body, dance and just hiking in nature, energy work, lots of different things. So as far as the mystery and going deeper with it and into the unknown, to me, that's always the way, is the body. And
yeah, all those ways that you talked about, I think are so important. All the ones that let us experience our body, because then, then we're aware of our bodies as sensing, able to be sensitive and have more sensory contact with the world, and so with more information, and then to count on, like you say, the body's intelligence. I'm so glad you talked about intelligence. Just how intelligent our bodies are in terms of survival, but also in terms of loving and contact and social organization, taking care of one another.
Right. So it's an interesting challenge, kind of having, because I'm not working with people in person and doing breath work. I'm always encouraging people to, like, okay, let's just drop into your breath and drop into your body, and what do you notice? And it seems to be a little bit scary for people at first, but then some people start to kind of create that habit, and then that just becomes part of our vocabulary in sessions. Is, okay, we're gonna do the thing. And there's always a deepening, there's always kind of getting into the soul from that point, out of the head and into the soul and in the heart. And yeah, that was really missing in my original treatment plan, I think. No one was saying, like, what's going on in your body and your breath, and no.
Yeah. And when we're first returning to our bodies, part of what's uncomfortable is we don't yet have the language. We don't know that language that you were talking about, the language of our bodies, and how to hear what a feeling is saying and what a sensation is trying to communicate to us. And it is learning a whole new language. We do, it's not something anybody was telling me about as a kid. That was something I got much later, and still learning that language and delighting in learning that language, really. This feeling and this sensation, oh, that's, I need this. Oh, right. And then how to communicate from that language, communicate ourselves and somebody else.
So that reminds me of the inner child, which I know you've talked about this before, or I've heard it in some context, but this idea that the inner child is actually, that's the divine self, kind of. They're basically the same thing. So that as you're uncovering that inner child, who obviously, everything that happened in the body, and you're giving that child the language and the vocabulary to talk about their experience, then you're simultaneously liberating this kind of divinity inside too, because they're totally linked. The inherent joyfulness, the inherent bliss, the inherent connectedness and playfulness, like, that's the inner child and the spirit. So
yeah, and it's us in our innocence, it's us in our vulnerability, it's us in our undeniable need of the other. It's us in that kind of intelligence that we come in with, that knows that we're connected to everything. It's, in that awe of, that sense of being part of this spectacular, miraculous place, that we feel as children. I really do. One of the biggest compliments you've paid me, or anybody's paid me, is talking about I was a champion for the child, I think is what you said. And I think returning to the child and trying to discover what it was like for the child during that time. So, we have a lot of just kind of built-in defenses against not remembering the child's experience and just how vulnerable it was to be living in a world full of giants and not have very much control. But to also be, like you say, that divine child, there are powers in that clarity of seeing and that open heart. And so to be in communication with that part of ourselves, and also whatever ways that child was wounded. And the other thing that I'm just now kind of getting to, because I've gotten to where I'm pretty good at turning toward and tuning in to that child, and what can I do that he needs? What is it that he didn't get that I can offer him now? All those kind of things. But now, and it was also it was a kind of parental relationship. I'm taking care of this child, but it's changed lately, and now it's much more mutual. It's much more a meeting of equals, and this child's being clear. Look, I have some things you need. I have my powers and my ways of seeing things, and well, even in fact, I can take care of you in certain ways. So that's been a nice discovery.
I think there's a parallel with that in animals, because I have this kitten that she's about 6 months now. I adopted her around 2 months, and it's been this back and forth of, I think I'm the one taking care of her, and I'm trying to figure out the best ways and being like super neurotic about it. And then like she just never stops loving me and like snuggling up on me at night. No matter what I do, I feel like, I don't know, I have like an imperfection complex around taking care of a little one. But
Yes.
she just keeps forgiving me, and it's so healing, and it's ongoing. But to me, that it reminds me of what you're talking about. Like, wait a minute, no, there are gifts being offered here that I need to open to. I need to accept this and kind of surrender to it in a way.
And she knows some things about you that you may not even know about yourself, right? She knows your cat knows something about your essence that she's liking a lot.
See, it's hard. It's hard to accept us.
That's right. Mutuality's tough.
So what has your
The intimacy.
what?
That's the intimacy, it's like it wasn't totally intimate when I was just taking care of this child self. But now it's much more intimate because there's some kind of equality there, or at least a meeting of different kinds of powers.
So what has he offered you that was surprising?
Oh, what a great question. Well, one of the things was just acknowledging the quality of my care, acknowledging to me that, yes, he's aware of my efforts
Mm.
to help him uh, feel safe, be alive, play, create, uh, not have to be responsible for everything in the world, those kinds of things. But there's also, you know how if you've ever seen like made eye contact with an animal in the wild, like I've done it briefly with a bear, I've done it with a coyote, I did it with a mink. I saw a mink by the creek early this summer. Hadn't seen one in forever. But
Wow.
there's that moment of eye contact with this wild creature,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the gifts. Like I felt like I was making eye contact with this wild creature, and it was holy.
Wow.
It was something sacred about it.
That's very cool. It's it's hard for me because we kind of talked about last time, but like the inner child the place where I kind of got stuck in life is really, really young and really early. So you have to get creative in finding ways to really connect and really listen and really be equals. Um, so
You know, that makes me think about the welcoming. You know, it's like when we get stuck really early, it's like, do I even belong here? Does anybody want me here? Is this even my planet? Those kinds of things. Going back to weirdos, and so that need to be welcomed and to be very conscious and deliberate about doing it. I love creating those kinds of rituals, like a ritual welcoming
mm,
for that really young one.
yeah, that's a good idea. Creating a ritual and involving other people in it and uh,
I was I was doing a training with some therapists in some of the somatic work this summer, and this kind of just spontaneously happened because we were just working with creating rituals, and I wasn't getting my point across to my satisfaction anyway, and so I started kind of creating a ritual on the spot, a welcoming ritual for this child who didn't feel like they belonged or they were welcome. And I just asked everybody I wrote down things for them to say. Let's see, like, I can't remember now, but it was like, this is a sacred moment.
mm,
This time with you is a very special time. Those kinds of things. They brought me prayer flags. They brought me different little gifts. It was kind of a Christ thing.
mm,
Wise men, shepherds,
mhm.
stars.
Right.
That was a serious welcoming.
So you wrote it for them to do for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
How
It
did
was
it?
that. Well, the first part, it was very hard. It was incredibly hard to receive once I'd set it in motion because they were so sincere in their wanting to give these things, right? And I hadn't looked that far ahead, to how much people would join with that. And they were just completely in it. And it was both difficult and hard to resist because I could see their genuine pleasure in my arrival, in giving me those things. You know?
Mm.
Kind of going back to circling back to where we were talking about, just taking delight in the moment, not just what are you going to be when you grow up. It's just like, oh, you're here, you made it.
Did you have a lot of tears?
I did. I was laughing and I was just kind of ashamed and crying, and it was so cool because after we kind of went through it, there were like two other people that wanted to do the same thing,
I bet.
be in my spot, and we would just do it again, and it never lost its power.
That's really beautiful. And do you think that someone could do that for themselves if they're just on their own?
Definitely, you can. No doubt, it can be done. I just think knowing you and me and probably some other people that have a hard time asking for help, it would be a good thing. It's just going back to the ego dissolving. When I'm doing it by myself, I can still have some control. But when I involve other people and then I hand them this part to play and they start playing it their way,
Mm-hmm.
which, which was way more intense than I had originally intended for them. And so it just took it beyond where I could probably have gone myself.
My kitten just came in the room.
Wouldn't you know it?
The welcoming committee.
Picking up on it, picking up on the conversation.